The Forbidden Sky Captain James Rivera stood in the command center of the merchant vessel Pathfinder, staring at the star-streaked viewport with hands clasped behind his back. The ship hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-maintained civilian hauler. But James remembered when he commanded something far different. 30 years ago, he had been a young officer aboard the battlecruiser Defiance. Back when humanity still had the right to build such vessels, that memory felt like a lifetime ago. Buried under decades of compliance and careful obedience to laws written by species that feared what humanity might become. "Captain, we're approaching the inspection checkpoint," called Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. His voice carried that familiar edge of tension that came before every encounter with Galactic Union authorities. James nodded without turning. "Reduce speed to minimal thrust. Open all access codes and prepare the cargo manifest. Let's make this quick." The Pathfinder was registered as a commercial transport, carrying agricultural equipment and construction materials to the colony world of New Haven. On paper, everything was legitimate. The ship's defensive capabilities were limited to basic meteor deflection shields and a single mining laser rated for asteroid clearing. By Galactic Union standards, the Pathfinder was harmless. Just another human vessel crawling through space under the watchful eyes of their supposed protectors. But James knew better. He had learned to see what others missed. The inspection station materialized ahead, a massive ring-shaped structure bristling with sensors and weapon platforms. A Valkyrie enforcement cruiser detached from its docking port, its sleek hull reflecting the light of the nearby sun. The Valkyrie were one of the founding species of the Galactic Union, ancient and arrogant, convinced of their divine right to govern the younger races. "Incoming transmission," Torres announced. "Put it through," James said, finally turning to face the main display. The image resolved into the angular features of Inspector Thalin, a Valkyrie official James had encountered too many times before. The alien's silver skin gleamed under harsh lighting, and his triple-jointed arms moved with practiced authority as he consulted his datapad. "Captain Rivera," Thalin said in perfect English, though his translator couldn't quite hide the disdain in his tone. "Another routine inspection. I trust your vessel is in full compliance with Union regulations?" "Always, Inspector," James replied evenly. "We follow every rule to the letter." Thalin's eyes narrowed slightly, as if searching for hidden meaning in James's words. "Indeed, your species has been remarkably obedient since the restriction treaty. It is good to see humans learning their place in civilized space." James bit back the response that burned in his throat. Instead, he smiled politely. "We appreciate the Union's guidance, Inspector." The inspection took 2 hours. Valkyrie drones scanned every centimeter of the Pathfinder, measuring power outputs, analyzing hull composition, verifying that no prohibited systems were installed. They examined the cargo holds, checked the crew quarters, and reviewed the ship's computer logs with exhausting thoroughness. Throughout it all, they found nothing. Because there was nothing to find. Not yet anyway. When the inspection finally ended and the Valkyrie cruiser withdrew, Torres let out a long breath. "I hate those scans. They make my skin crawl." "Get used to it," James said quietly. "As long as the treaty stands, this is our reality." He returned to his quarters after setting the course for New Haven, a journey that would take another 3 days at civilian cruising speed. His cabin was small but comfortable, decorated with mementos from his naval service. Photographs of ships that no longer existed, medals that meant nothing in the current political landscape. James sat at his desk and pulled up an encrypted message that had arrived during the inspection, hidden in routine commercial traffic. The sender was listed as a shipping coordinator from New Haven, but James recognized the code signature. This message came from someone within the Resistance, the network of former military personnel who refused to accept humanity's permanent disarmament. He decrypted the message with his personal key, and text appeared on his screen. Horizon Project requires experienced command personnel. Dr. Elena Vasquez requests meeting at New Haven Station. Bay 7, Docking Port Delta. Time sensitive. Respond only if committed. James read it 3 times. The Horizon Project. He had heard whispers about it in veteran circles. Rumors of something being built in secret, some kind of contingency plan. But details were scarce, and the risks of involvement were enormous. If the Galactic Union discovered any attempt to circumvent the restriction treaty, the consequences would be severe. Economic sanctions at minimum, military intervention at worst not. But James also remembered the lesson humanity had learned the hard way during first contact. When the shooting started, promises of protection meant nothing. The only defense you could truly trust was your own strength. He composed a brief reply. Arrival New Haven in 72 hours. Will attend meeting. The journey passed uneventfully. The Pathfinder made steady progress through designated shipping lanes, encountering a handful of other vessels along the way, mostly alien freighters and a few human transports like themselves. Every human ship looked the same now, stripped of weapons, limited in capability, forced to rely on others for protection. In a galaxy that was growing more dangerous by the year. New Haven Station orbited a blue-green world that reminded James of Earth. The colony below was home to nearly 5 million humans, one of the success stories of humanity's expansion into space. The station itself served as a hub for commerce and ship maintenance, its massive dry docks constantly busy with vessels undergoing repairs or upgrades. James docked the Pathfinder at the assigned berth and made arrangements for the cargo to be offloaded. Then, wearing civilian clothes and carrying no identification beyond his commercial pilot's license, he made his way through the crowded corridors to Docking Port Delta. Bay 7 was located in the industrial section, surrounded by warehouses and repair facilities. The directory listed it as belonging to Vasquez Engineering Solutions, a private firm specializing in ship systems optimization. James entered through an unmarked door and found himself in a cluttered office space filled with holographic displays showing various ship designs. A woman in her late 40s stood from behind a desk, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her eyes sharp with intelligence. She wore the casual jumpsuit of a ship engineer, but something in her bearing suggested military training. "Captain Rivera," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. Thank you for coming." They shook hands, and Elena activated a privacy field that shimmered around them, blocking any surveillance. "What I'm about to show you must remain absolutely confidential. Lives depend on this secret staying hidden." "I understand," James said. "I've kept secrets before." Elena brought up a holographic display showing what appeared to be a standard heavy transport vessel, the kind used for bulk cargo across long distances. "Tell me what you see, Captain." James studied the design carefully. Class 9 transport, reinforced hull for deep space operations. Standard configuration for colony supply runs. "Look at the power distribution," Elena prompted. James zoomed in on the engineering section, and his eyes widened. The fusion reactor was massive, far larger than any civilian vessel would require. The energy conduits were oversized, and the structural supports were reinforced at points that made no sense for a transport ship. Understanding began to dawn. "You're building warships," he breathed. Elena smiled slightly. "No, Captain. We're building civilian vessels that happen to be extremely adaptable. Everything you see here is technically legal under the Restriction Treaty. Oversized reactors for long-range operations in hazardous space, reinforced hulls for asteroid field navigation, modular cargo systems for flexible mission profiles." She brought up another display. This one showing a mining vessel with industrial cutting equipment. These are asteroid processing tools, perfectly legal. But with minor modifications to the focusing arrays and power feeds, they could function as point defense weapons. Purely theoretical, of course. James felt his pulse quicken. How many ships are we talking about? 83 vessels currently in operation, Elena said. Another 140 in various stages of preparation. Ships that look harmless, but can transform into combat-capable vessels when needed. We call it the Horizon Project, humanity's hidden fleet. She pulled up schematics showing the conversion process. With the right modifications and pre-positioned equipment, a civilian vessel could be reconfigured for military operations in under 2 hours. Cargo bays could house weapon systems. Civilian sensors could be upgraded to military-grade arrays. And those oversized reactors could power shields and weapons that officially didn't exist. This is brilliant, James said, his mind racing through the tactical implications. But also incredibly dangerous. If the Galactic Union discovers this before we're ready, then we need people who can make sure we're ready, Elena interrupted. The Horizon Project isn't just about building ships, Captain. It's about building a fleet. And a fleet needs experienced commanders who understand naval warfare, who can train crews and develop tactics for vessels that officially don't exist. James looked at the ship designs floating in the holographic display. Seeing them transform in his mind, from civilian transports into the warships humanity was forbidden to build. It was audacious, risky, and possibly humanity's only real hope for survival in a galaxy that pretended to protect them while keeping them helpless. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Elena's expression grew serious. "I need you to take command of a training program. We have ships, we have crews, but most of them have never seen combat. They're cargo haulers and miners and research personnel who volunteered for this, but they don't know how to fight. You do. The Galactic Union will notice if I suddenly stop running commercial routes," James pointed out. "You'll continue your normal operations," Elena assured him. "But during layovers and maintenance periods, you'll train our people. Simulations, tactical exercises, everything they need to know about operating a warship hidden inside a civilian hull. We have facilities scattered across human space, hidden in asteroid mining operations and remote research stations." James thought about the Pathfinder, his glorified cargo hauler. He thought about Inspector Thalon and his condescending inspections, the constant reminder of humanity's subordinate position. He thought about the promises of protection that rang hollow when he considered the vast distances of space and the growing threats that lurked in the darkness. "I'm in," he said finally. "But we need to be smart about this. One mistake, one suspicious pattern, and the Union will come down on us like a hammer." Elena nodded. "We've been careful for 5 years, Captain. Every ship has legitimate civilian operations. Every modification has a plausible explanation. We're not violating the treaty. We're just interpreting it very creatively." Over the next hour, Elena showed James the full scope of the Horizon Project. Ships hidden across dozens of colonies and stations, crews training in secret, supply networks disguised as commercial operations. It was an organization built on necessity and desperation, staffed by people who remembered when humanity had been strong, who refused to accept permanent weakness as their fate. As James left the meeting and returned to the Pathfinder, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 30 years. Hope mixed with purpose. Humanity had been forbidden to build warships, told they couldn't be trusted with real military power, forced to accept protection from species that barely considered them equals. But humanity had never been good at accepting other people's limitations. They had been told they couldn't fly, couldn't reach space, couldn't survive among the stars. Every time they had proven the doubters wrong. The Galactic Union had forbidden warships. They had written treaties and established oversight to ensure humanity remained weak. But they had underestimated human ingenuity, the ability to find solutions where others saw only obstacles. The Phoenix was being built in secret, one civilian ship at a time. And when the crisis came, because James knew it would come eventually, humanity would be ready to defend itself. They had been told it couldn't be done. Soon, they would prove everyone wrong. Asterisk when stars fall silent. The emergency klaxon shattered the routine calm of New Haven. Station at 0347 hours. Captain James Rivera was pulled from sleep by the piercing wail, his military instincts activating before his conscious mind fully registered the sound. He rolled out of his bunk aboard the Pathfinder, already reaching for his uniform as the ship's communication system crackled to life. All personnel, this is Station Command. We have a Priority Alpha situation. Multiple hostile contacts detected at the Kepler border. All ships are ordered to remain docked pending further instructions. James's blood ran cold. The Kepler border was humanity's frontier, a sparse collection of mining outposts and research stations that marked the edge of human-controlled space. It was also the closest human territory to the Vroken Expanse, a region of space controlled by one of the galaxy's most aggressive species. He reached the bridge in less than 2 minutes, finding Lieutenant Torres already at his station, pulling up sensor data being relayed from the border region. The young officer's face was pale. "Captain, you need to see this," Torres said, his voice tight with controlled panic. The tactical display showed a nightmare. Dozens of Vroken warships had crossed into human space, their signatures unmistakable. Heavy cruisers, attack frigates, and carrier vessels formed a coordinated assault fleet. They weren't raiding or probing defenses. This was a full-scale invasion force. Where's the Galactic Union response? James demanded. Torres pulled up the communication logs. New Haven Command has been trying to reach Union military coordination for 20 minutes. They're getting automated responses saying the request has been logged and forces will be dispatched according to protocol timelines. Protocol timelines, James repeated bitterly. Which means what? Hours? Days? The nearest Union fleet is at least 48 hours away, sir. Even if they departed immediately. James felt fury rising in his chest. This was exactly what he had feared, what every veteran of humanity's disarmament had warned about. The Galactic Union promised protection, but when the crisis came, humans were expected to wait patiently while their colonies burned. The Vroken were a predatory species, territorial and aggressive. They had been pushing against their borders for years, testing Union resolve. Apparently, they had decided that human space represented an easy target, poorly defended and lacking any real military capability to resist. They were about to learn how wrong that assumption was. James's encrypted communicator vibrated with an incoming message. He recognized Dr. Elena Vasquez's personal code. The message was brief, but loaded with meaning. Horizon Authorization Omega. All assets activate. Defensive protocol engaged. Protect human colonies at all costs. Command authority transferred to field commanders. Godspeed. This was it. The moment the Horizon Project had prepared for. The moment when humanity's hidden fleet would either save them or reveal itself. Too early and accomplish nothing. James made his decision in seconds. Torres, seal the bridge and activate privacy protocols. What I'm about to tell you stays between us until I give the order otherwise. The lieutenant's eyes widened, but he complied, engaging the security systems that would prevent anyone from monitoring their conversation. The Pathfinder isn't just a cargo hauler, James said quietly. It never was. We're part of a program called the Horizon Project. This ship can be converted to military configuration in 90 minutes. And we're not alone. He pulled up the classified specifications on his personal terminal. watching Torres's face cycle through shock, disbelief, and finally understanding. Sir, if the Union discovers this, the Union just demonstrated why this was necessary. James cut him off. Our people are dying while we wait for protection that may never arrive. I'm activating the Pathfinder's combat systems. I need to know right now if you're with me, because once we start this, there's no going back. Torres stared at the specifications for a long moment. Then he straightened in his chair, and James saw the military bearing that civilian service had buried but never erased. What are your orders, Captain? James allowed himself a brief smile. Sound general quarters. Wake the crew and brief them on what's happening. Then start the conversion sequence. I want this ship ready for combat in 75 minutes. The Pathfinder transformed before his eyes. Panels that had appeared to be standard hull plating slid aside, revealing concealed weapon mounts. The mining laser's focusing array reconfigured, its power output increasing tenfold as military-grade capacitors came online. Shield generators extended from hidden housings, their energy fields flickering to life with a distinctive blue shimmer. The oversized reactor that had always seemed excessive for a cargo hauler surged to full military power, feeding energy to systems that officially didn't exist. Cargo bay modules detached and rearranged, creating firing arcs and defensive positions. External armor plates deployed, covering vulnerable sections with composite materials designed to withstand directed energy weapons. Asterisk. Throughout New Haven Station and across human space, the same transformation was occurring on dozens of ships. Mining vessels became patrol corvettes. Research ships activated military-grade sensor arrays and electronic warfare suites. Heavy transports revealed the assault carrier, configurations hidden beneath their civilian exteriors. The Horizon Fleet was awakening. James stood at the command center, now reconfigured into a proper military bridge, and opened a channel to New Haven Station Command. This is Captain James Rivera of the United Human Defense Vessel Pathfinder. We are combat capable and requesting permission to engage hostile forces at the Kepler border. The response came after a stunned pause. Pathfinder, please repeat your last transmission. Did you say defense vessel? Affirmative, Station Command. We are one of multiple human ships with military capability. We are prepared to defend our colonies while awaiting Galactic Union support. Request tactical coordination and rules of engagement. Another pause, longer this time. Then a new voice came through, older and carrying unmistakable authority. Pathfinder, this is Admiral Michael Zhao, New Haven Defense Coordinator. I'm reading 43 vessels broadcasting similar capabilities across the local sector. Captain Rivera, what the hell is going on? With respect, Admiral, I'll explain everything after we deal with the immediate crisis. Right now, our people need help, and we're in a position to provide it. Zhao's voice hardened with decision. Understood, Captain. I'm assuming tactical command of all available forces. Transmitting fleet coordination protocols now. All ships are to form up at Rally Point Baker and prepare for transit to Kepler Station. We're going to buy our colonies time to evacuate. Over the next hour, 43 human vessels that had been disguised as harmless civilian craft coordinated into a coherent military formation. It wasn't a proper fleet, not like the organized naval forces that had been dismantled 30 years ago, but it was something. Ships designed for different purposes, modified in secret, crewed by people who had never expected to fight, all coming together to defend their own. The Pathfinder took position as part of the Fast Response Group, along with 6 other vessels of similar size and capability. Their orders were clear. Reach Kepler Station before the Vroken fleet could destroy it, engage the enemy, and hold the line until civilians could be evacuated and Union reinforcements arrived. It was a suicide mission. And everyone knew it. 43 converted civilian ships against a proper military invasion force. The mathematics were brutal, but mathematics had never stopped humanity before. The transit to Kepler took 6 hours at maximum military speed, the ships pushing their upgraded engines far beyond civilian safety limits. James spent the time drilling his crew on combat procedures, running simulations, preparing them for the reality of warfare that none of them had experienced. Torres proved to be an excellent tactical officer, his mind quickly adapting to military thinking. The engineering team, led by Chief Ramirez, kept the modified systems running smoothly despite the strain. Even the civilian specialists who had signed on for cargo runs rose to the challenge, taking positions at weapon stations and damage control centers. They emerged from transit space to find Kepler Station under siege. The small outpost, home to 50,000 miners and their families, was surrounded by broken warships. Defensive platforms burned in the void, their wreckage still glowing from energy weapons fire. Several civilian transports had been destroyed trying to flee, their debris fields marking the graves of thousands. But the station itself still stood, its shields flickering but holding, buying precious time for evacuation ships to load refugees. Tactical analysis, James ordered, studying the display. 17 broken vessels, sir, Torres reported. Mix of cruisers and frigates. They're maintaining siege formation, systematically breaking down the station's defenses. Multiple evacuation transports are still docked, unable to launch safely. James opened a fleet-wide channel. All Horizon vessels, this is Pathfinder. We're not going to win this fight through conventional tactics. The Vroken think they're facing defenseless humans. Let's use that assumption against them. He outlined his plan quickly, and despite its audacity, no one objected. There wasn't time for better options. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The largest contingent, including the Pathfinder, accelerated directly toward the Vroken formation, broadcasting civilian distress signals and emergency transponder codes. They appeared to be desperate cargo haulers trying to flee the battle zone. The Vroken response was predictable. 3 of their frigates broke formation to intercept and destroy the fleeing ships. Viewing them as easy prey, they realized their mistake when the fleeing vessels suddenly pivoted, dropped their civilian transponder masks, and opened fire at point-blank range. The Pathfinders reconfigured. Mining lasers struck the lead Vroken frigate with concentrated energy that carved through its forward shields. Missiles launched from concealed bays, exploiting the gap in the enemy's defenses. 3 other human ships coordinated their fire on a second frigate, overwhelming its point defense with sheer volume. The 3rd Vroken ship managed to return fire, but its weapons struck shields that were far stronger than civilian vessels should possess. The human ships scattered and reformed, using tactics that shouldn't have been possible for untrained cargo haulers. Chaos spread through the Vroken formation. Their tactical displays had shown harmless human transports. Now those same vessels were fighting with coordinated military precision, using weapons and systems that shouldn't exist. While the Vroken fleet tried to process this impossible development, the second group of human ships struck from a different vector. These were the converted mining vessels, using the maneuverability designed for asteroid operations to dart between larger Vroken ships, targeting engines and weapon systems with precision strikes. The 3rd group, led by Admiral Zhao aboard the converted research vessel Discovery, positioned themselves between Kepler Station and the Vroken main force, creating a defensive screen that allowed the evacuation transports to finally launch. The battle became a confused melee. The Vroken had superior firepower and armor, but they had planned for a massacre, not a fight. Human ships used unconventional tactics, exploiting blind spots and coordinating attacks in ways that confused enemy targeting systems. The Pathfinder danced through the battle space. James's old naval training merging with the unique capabilities of his hybrid vessel. They weren't trying to destroy the enemy fleet. That would have been impossible. They were trying to create enough chaos and damage to force a withdrawal, to buy time for the evacuation and Union reinforcements. A Vroken cruiser locked onto the Pathfinder, its heavy plasma cannons charging. James saw the threat developing and made a split-second decision that would have been impossible in a real warship, but worked perfectly for a converted cargo hauler. Engineering. Emergency cargo dump, Bay 3. The Pathfinder ejected a full container of mining explosives, previously carried as legitimate cargo. The container tumbled directly into the path of the incoming plasma fire. The resulting detonation created a debris field that scattered the enemy's weapons fire and temporarily blinded their sensors. Similar improvisations occurred across the battle. Human crews used every advantage their civilian origins provided, turning supposed weaknesses into tactical strengths. Mining charges became mines. Construction equipment became improvised weapons. Cargo containers became shields and decoys. The Vroken fleet, faced with unexpected resistance and mounting casualties, made a critical error. They consolidated their formation, pulling back from the station to regroup and reassess the situation. It was exactly the opening Admiral Zhao had been waiting for. All ships covering fire. Zhao's voice rang across the fleet channel. Get those evacuation transports clear. The human fleet concentrated their fire on the Vroken ships that tried to pursue the fleeing civilian vessels. It was desperate and costly. 2 human ships took crippling damage, and the Pathfinder's shields dropped to critical levels. But the evacuation transports broke free and scattered into different transit vectors. 50,000 civilians escaped because 43 military vessels that weren't supposed to exist had bought them the time they needed. The arrival of the Galactic Union Fleet 47 hours later was almost anticlimactic. The massive Union dreadnoughts entered the system, and the Vroken force immediately withdrew, unwilling to face the overwhelming firepower of the galaxy's peacekeepers. By then, the human fleet had saved 3 more colonies, fought off 6 additional Vrokan raids, and fundamentally changed the political situation in human space. James stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder, now back in civilian configuration, but marked with battle damage that couldn't be hidden, as a Union diplomatic shuttle approached. Inspector Thalen was aboard, accompanied by senior officials from multiple Galactic Council species. The conversation that followed would determine humanity's future. Thalen's face was tight with barely controlled anger as his image appeared on the view screen. Captain Rivera, you have violated the restriction treaty in the most egregious manner possible. You and your co-conspirators have built military vessels in direct contradiction of agreements your government signed. No, Inspector, James replied calmly. We built civilian vessels that proved adaptable in an emergency. We followed the letter of the treaty while preparing for the possibility that Union protection might not arrive in time, which, as it turned out, was a reasonable concern. Semantics and deception. Survival, James countered. The Vroken invasion killed 37,000 humans before our civilian vessels intervened. How many more would have died if we had waited another 2 days for Union forces to arrive? A new voice entered the conversation, belonging to Ambassador Krell, a senior Theraxian diplomat with significant influence in the Galactic Council. Captain Rivera raises a valid point, Inspector Thalen. The treaty was designed to prevent human aggression, not to ensure human extinction. This Horizon Project, as I understand it is called, operated within technical legal boundaries while providing necessary defensive capability. The debate continued for weeks. The Galactic Union was divided. Some species viewed humanity's deception as proof they couldn't be trusted. Others recognized that the current system had failed to protect human colonies adequately. In the end, pragmatism won. The restriction treaty was revised. Humanity would be allowed to maintain defensive forces, properly registered and monitored, but with significantly fewer restrictions than before. The converted civilian vessels of the Horizon Project would be legitimized, and humanity would be permitted to build new warships within specified limits. It wasn't full equality with the founding species. Not yet, but it was progress. James stood at the observation deck of the Pathfinder, now officially registered as a United Human Defense Force vessel, watching construction begin on the first purpose-built human warship in 30 years. The shipyard above New Haven hummed with activity, no longer hiding what it was building. Dr. Elena Vasquez joined him at the window. "We did it," she said quietly. "We proved they were wrong about us." "We proved we could adapt," James corrected. "We proved that humanity doesn't accept helplessness as a permanent condition. They said we couldn't build warships. They were right, technically. What we built was something better, more flexible, more innovative. And now? Now we build the fleet we should have always been allowed to have. Not to threaten anyone, but to ensure that no one can threaten us with impunity. Humanity stands on its own feet from now on." In the depths of space, the Phoenix that had been hidden for 5 years now flew openly. The galaxy had forbidden humanity from building warships, had told them it couldn't be done within the restrictions imposed upon them. Humanity had smiled, nodded, and done it anyway, because that's what humans did. They found the impossible and made it possible. They took restrictions and turned them into opportunities. They refused to be victims of circumstances beyond their control. The stars belonged to those brave enough to claim them. And humanity, forbidden or not, had just proved they were exactly that brave. The Horizon Project was no longer a secret. It was a promise. A declaration that humanity would never again wait helplessly while others decided their fate. They had been told it couldn't be done. They had proved everyone wrong. And the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Asterisk.